The Power of Kindness. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Had Nothing to Give. In a small, dusty village named Karampur, there lived a 10-year-old boy named Kabir. His family was poor. His father worked as a farmer, and his mother stitched clothes for neighbors to earn extra money. Kabir often went to bed hungry, wearing torn clothes, and dreaming of a life where he could eat until he was full. One winter evening, as Kabir walked home from school, shivering in his thin shirt, he saw an old man sitting by the roadside, coughing violently. The man's clothes were tattered, and his lips were cracked from thirst. Kabir stopped. He had nothing, no money, no food. But then he remembered the single roti his mother had packed for his lunch, which he had saved for later. With a deep breath, Kabir approached the old man and held out the roti. "Here, grandfather, eat this." The old man's eyes widened. "But this is your food, child." Kabir smiled weakly. "I'll manage. You need it more." The old man took the roti with trembling hands and ate it slowly, savoring every bite. When he finished, he looked at Kabir with tears in his eyes. "Kindness is the only treasure that increases when you give it away," he whispered. Then he placed a small, smooth pebble in Kabir's hand. "Keep this close. It's more than it seems." Before Kabir could ask questions, the old man stood up and walked away, disappearing into the evening mist. Kabir stared at the pebble, confused. It looked ordinary, but something about it felt warm. Chapter 2. The Miracle of the Pebble. That night, Kabir placed the pebble under his thin pillow and slept. He dreamed of a vast field where golden wheat swayed under a bright sun. A voice echoed, "The smallest act of kindness can grow into a forest of hope." When he woke up, something unbelievable happened. His mother, who usually woke up exhausted, was humming cheerfully. "Kabir, come see." Outside their hut, a small basket of fresh vegetables and fruits sat at their doorstep. No note, no explanation, just food. Kabir's stomach growled, but his heart felt even fuller. Who could have left this? His mother wondered. Kabir clutched the pebble in his pocket. Was this because of the old man? Chapter 3. The chain reaction begins. The next day, Kabir decided to test the pebble's power. At school, his classmate Ria was crying because she had lost her pencil, her only one. Kabir hesitated. He only had one pencil too, but remembering the old man's words, he gave her his. "Here, take mine," he said. Ria wiped her tears. "But what will you use?" Kabir shrugged. "I'll figure it out." That afternoon, their teacher, Mrs. Sharma, noticed Kabir scratching notes with a broken piece of chalk. "Kabir, where's your pencil?" she asked. When he explained, Mrs. Sharma's eyes softened. The next day, she brought a box of pencils, not just for Kabir, but for every child in class who couldn't afford supplies. Kabir grinned. The pebble was working. Chapter 4. The Bully's Change of Heart. Not everyone appreciated Kabir's kindness. Vikram, the school bully, mocked him. "Why do you help others? They'll never help you back," Vikram sneered. Kabir just smiled. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but being kind feels good anyway. One day, Vikram twisted his ankle during a football match. The other boys laughed, but Kabir ran to help him up. "Why are you helping me?" Vikram grunted in pain. "Because it's the right thing to do," Kabir said simply. Vikram was silent. The next week, he stopped bullying kids and even gave his extra lunch to a stray dog. Chapter 5. The Village Transforms. Word of Kabir's kindness spread. The grocer started giving leftover bread to the hungry. The tailor stitched free uniforms for poor students. Even the grumpy old landlord, Mr. Khanna, donated a piece of land for a community garden. The pebble in Kabir's pocket glowed faintly, but he knew the real magic wasn't in the stone, it was in people's hearts. Chapter 6. The Stranger Returns. Years later, Kabir, now a young man, was teaching at the village school when the old man returned. "You've done well, Kabir," the old man said with a knowing smile. Kabir's eyes widened. "It was you. But how? The pebble, the miracles?" The old man chuckled. "The pebble was just a reminder. The real power was always inside you, and inside everyone." With that, he vanished again, leaving Kabir with a heart full of understanding. The final lesson. Kabir grew old, but the village never forgot his legacy. They called it the ripple of kindness, the single good deed that multiplied into countless others. On his last day, Kabir gathered the children and whispered, "The world is hard, but kindness softens it. You may not have money, but you always have love to give. And remember, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted." With that, he placed the pebble in the smallest child's hand and closed his eyes, smiling. Epilogue. The pebble's journey. Generations later, the pebble was passed down, always finding its way to those who needed a reminder. Kindness is the strongest force in the world, and somewhere in the wind, the old man's voice still whispers, "Give and watch the world give back." Chapter 7. The Drought That Tested Hearts. One scorching summer, Karampur faced its worst drought in decades. The wells dried up, crops withered, and hunger gnawed at every home. People began hoarding whatever little they had, fear replacing compassion. Kabir, now a young man, watched helplessly as neighbors turned against each other. The grocer stopped sharing food. The landlord barred villagers from his lone functioning well. Even friends quarreled over water pots. One night, as Kabir clutched his pebble in despair, his father coughed weakly in the corner, dehydration making him feverish. At that moment, Kabir faced a choice: save his family or remind the village of who they truly were. He chose both. At dawn, Kabir did something shocking. He took his family's last pot of water and poured it into the community trough for stray animals. Villagers gasped. "Have you gone mad?" his mother cried. But as thirsty dogs and birds drank, something miraculous happened. A little girl, moved by Kabir's act, brought her half-empty water jug. Then the blacksmith added his share. Within hours, the village well, which everyone believed dry, was found to have a tiny trickle when dug deeper. Together, kindness is the rain that makes hidden springs surface, the schoolteacher murmured as the entire village worked in shifts to deepen the well. Chapter 8. The Shadow of Doubt. Not everyone believed in Kabir's way. A wealthy merchant from the city, Harshad Mehta, arrived during the drought, offering food at a price. "Your kindness won't fill bellies," he sneered, waving contracts for villagers to sell their lands. When Kabir protested, Harshad set a challenge. "Feed 100 people tomorrow without coins. Then I'll leave." That night, the pebble burned in Kabir's palm. He walked through the village, not asking for food, but for stories. At sunrise, 100 people gathered in the square, not for a meal, but for a story feast. As Kabir began telling tales, something magical unfolded. The baker remembered his grandmother's recipe for drought bread, made from wild seeds. The midwife revealed forgotten knowledge of thirst-quenching roots. Children showed how to collect dew from leaves. By sharing knowledge instead of hoarding scraps, the village created a banquet from nothing. Harshad left speechless, but not before secretly donating his wagon of grain. "You thought kindness was weakness," Kabir called after him. "But it's the deepest strength. It turns strangers into family." Chapter 9. The Fire That Forged Bonds. During festival season, a terrible fire broke out in the village. Flames consumed the tailor's shop where Kabir's mother worked. As villagers formed a bucket chain, Kabir did the unthinkable. He ran into the burning building, not for valuables, but for the tailor's paralyzed grandmother. Smoke filled his lungs as he carried her out. When he collapsed, he expected pain. Instead, he felt dozens of hands catching him. The same people who once fought over water, now formed a human net. Vikram, the former bully, tore off his shirt to smother Kabir's burns. Mrs. Sharma used her sari to filter water for the injured. Even the landlord's son risked his life to save the shop's account books, not for debt records, but to preserve the names of every villager who'd ever helped another. As dawn broke over the charred remains, something extraordinary became clear. While the fire destroyed wood and cloth, every single life had been saved. The tailor wept as he held Kabir. You taught us buildings can be rebuilt, but kindness is the only thing truly fireproof. Chapter 10, The Circle completes. Years later, as an elderly Kabir lay surrounded by loved ones, a familiar face appeared, the old man from his childhood, unchanged by time. You've learned the final lesson, the stranger smiled. Kindness never ends, it just changes hands. He placed Kabir's weathered pebble into the palm of Leela, a mischievous orphan girl Kabir had adopted. The moment she touched it, the stone glowed brighter than ever before. Outside, the village that once struggled to feed itself, now, ran a free school for neighboring towns, sent volunteers to disaster-struck areas. Even Harshad's grandson had established a kindness bank, where loans were repaid not with interest, but with good deeds done for others. As Kabir took his last breath, he didn't hear weeping, but laughter. For in Karampur, even death was met with stories of lives touched, not sorrow for what was lost. Epilogue: The Stone's Secret. Generations later, when archaeologists excavated Karampur, they found something puzzling. A single glowing pebble at the heart of the village square. Science couldn't explain its luminescence, but every child knew the truth. It only glowed when someone performed a selfless act. One night, a thief stole the stone, hoping to sell it. But as he hid in the shadows, he saw a starving kitten. Without thinking, he gave it his last piece of bread. The pebble blazed like sunlight in his pocket, and somewhere in the stars, two voices chuckled, one young, one ancient, as another heart discovered kindness was never about the stone, but always about the hand that held it.